New investigation that's shining a light on the racial disparities in housing and how much harder it is for minorities to purchase a home than white Americans. Senior investigative correspondent David Scott has more on that.
It's been more than 50 years since the Fair Housing Act outlawed discrimination in home buying. But more than a half century later, minorities continue to have a harder time purchasing homes than white Americans.
Has the Federal Fair Housing Act simply failed America?
It's failed America because it's never been enforced by any presidential administration. You don't find any other real attempt, regardless of who the president is, regardless of which administration you have in office, that has literally said, we're going to really work on this.
Nationwide, about 35% of black applicants are approved for mortgage loans, compared to nearly 56% of white applicants in the same income range applying for similar loans. Milwaukee is one of the country's more diverse major cities, but statistics analyzed by ABC News show it's also the most segregated.
These houses are gorgeous houses.
Exie Tatum III owns a home on Milwaukee's predominantly black north side and is hoping to trade up to a home in a nearby suburb. Trying to get out of the inner city has not been easy.
I still feel like my bankers always have to go to the underwriters and fight for me. They literally tell me that I'm going to fight for you. Why do you have to fight for me when I'm meeting all the criteria that you told me I needed?
Here in Milwaukee's majority white neighborhoods, our data show that white applicants have a loan approval rate 1.5 times higher than people of color with the same income range applying for similar loan amounts.
The ideal home would look like probably a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. You want a neighborhood that you can see your child ride up and down the street on their big wheel or their bike and know that they're safe.
ABC News analyzed nearly 2 million loans for this report, and you can see the full investigation, Housing Divide, on Nightline tonight. Deirdre?
Looking forward to it. David Scott, thank you very much. With us now, Andre Perry. He is a senior fellow with the Brookings Metropolitan Policy Program. Andre, welcome. Glad you're here. The Justice Department under the Biden administration making an effort to investigate and prosecute racist housing practices. Has that had any effect so far?
No, Deirdre. There's a couple of things that are going on here. Remember, housing discrimination is baked into current policy. Since our founding, the federal government has not only codified local segregation policies in federal law, it's subsidized it. The federal government restricted low-interest mortgages throughout the 30s through the 70s and insurances to white families in white neighborhoods, and it largely denied those same subsidies to black families. And what that created, it helped create or further a wealth divide that already existed. And so white families were able to accrue more wealth. Black families were not. And today, white median family wealth is about 8 times greater than black family wealth. So not only do we need to unhinge this architecture of inequality by removing the policies, we also must restore the value that's been extracted by racism over time. And that's just very difficult, but it is possible. Each administration has a responsibility of making sure black families get the policies and subsidies that they never received.
So, Andre, speaking of the policies, I mean, the Fair Housing Act is already on the books, right? So, in theory, the answer is not more legislation. In theory, it's a question of enforcement. Is that right?
Yeah, it is about enforcement, but let's be clear. The Fair Housing Act did not eliminate all the practices that were in play to help segregate communities. Single-family zoning ordinances, for instance, are still cherished by many families, but those were used as a tool to keep Black people out of certain neighborhoods. Certain appraisal practices, like the price comparison model, where we compare homes to others in similar neighborhoods, is fraught, because when you compare homes to others in neighborhoods that have been discriminated against, you effectively recycle the discrimination over and over again. These practices and policies are still in place in spite of the Fair Housing Act. So we're going to not only have to address these policies that American culture has embraced, we're going to have to replace them with new ones that encourage inclusion and wealth development among African Americans.
Andre, obviously the past is fraught with horrible instances. I mean, there's historical factors like housing covenants, redlining, white flight, generational wealth inequality, which you just referenced. But how are all of these coming into play now that keeps progress stuck?
You know, my Brookings research, along with my colleague Jonathan Rothwell and David Harshbarger, we found that homes in Black neighborhoods are underpriced by 23% or $48,000 compared to their white counterparts. And that's after controlling for education, crime, walkability, all those fancy Zillow metrics. And what that amounts to is $156 billion in lost equity in Black neighborhoods. Now, Black homeowners are not the only ones suffering. Anyone owning a home in proximity to Black neighborhoods where the share of the Black population is 50%, their homes are reduced. And we certainly see high-flying cases of appraisal bias where Black families are whitewashing their homes, removing the Black artifacts, the art, clothing, hair products even, to get a second appraisal, which often comes in higher. And so these policies are not of the past. That 23% difference that I cited, that's evidence that there's still drags of racism in our current housing market that we need to eliminate.
Andre, keep doing the research and the important work that you're doing. Thank you in the meantime for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Andre Perry.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.